Attention, due to the nature of the films discussed, the Civil Gore podcast may contain adult language and themes.
Hey guys, welcome to the 13th episode of Civil Gore.
13.
Lucky
Yeah,
13.
lucky 13 for us. And hopefully for all you fine people who listen.
Yep. We've got a packed show tonight. We had originally planned to do Rings, which was the recent Ring movie, and decided instead to be a little more ambitious and do the whole trilogy.
Yes, much to our chagrin on...
Yeah, I don't know if that was a good decision or a bad decision, but obviously we're not going to go scene by scene, but we will give our general impressions of the whole series to date.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit, off the format from our usual, but, it keeps things fresh, so I like to do that.
Yeah, we like to change it up every now and again just to keep things interesting. Brian, I am dying to hear about our first chop is, of course, our usual mix of what we saw and what we did over the past week, but I'm dying to hear about your excursion into the theater district with an off-Broadway production of Sweeney Todd.
Yes, and so it was kind of off-Broadway. It was actually in Greenwich Village, and it was in this little theater that it's kind of a combination of a couple of things, actually. It's like it was a theater. I think it had there was some kind of children's party on the sixth floor of the theater. It was some old building. It was at the Barrow Street Theater. So it was really cool. And just here, a little backstory is my wife Julie, Sweeney Todd is always one of her favorite plays, and she had seen a really good production of it out in California, and so she always wanted to see it again. The movie just didn't do it justice. She was not pleased with the movie at all, as it didn't really have the same flair as the play version she saw. And this one was announced, and it's a little different. It wasn't just regular seats, and you watch this. It was actually the theater itself was designed based on Harrington's Pie Shop in London, which I know that was not the name of it in the play, but this is what it was. And they actually served you could order a ticket and a pie. So you could show up they told you to show up about an hour early before the performance, and you got to have a meat or vegetarian pie along with a beverage. They had one of your favorite breweries, 6 Point. That was it was only the option. They did not have Bengali, unfortunately. It was Sweet Action and Crisp. But you know what? It's a beer that's included, so you know what? We're not going to argue too much. But yeah. So you go into it, and literally the theater, you would think you're just literally in a pie shop. And, it's long tables, almost like you would see at a beer garden, kind of these long picnicky type tables. So you sit down and you're enjoying your pie and drinks. And about 15 minutes before, they come in and they try and make sure everything's cleared away. And they tell you, please don't have anything on the table because, the actors actually go onto the table. And yeah, so I'm like, okay, so I figured it's going to be like, they go through the aisle. But let me tell you, the interactivity to this play, just blew me away. And we purposely picked the front. So we were like seats 1 and 2, which was right next to each other on the bench. And there were 2 people across from us. So 1 and 2 actually goes from 1 is front, 2 is the second one. And, there is a little, like, they didn't pack it in. So when this thing starts, literally they have people come and they'll sit down at your table with you at the edge of the table, at the head of the table, and kind of... and they just start, the play just starts literally with them at the table. They interact with you. Everything's going on. And we lucked out because I think where we were had the most interactivity. So, like, a perfect example of this is there's a sequence where Pirelli, which is in the movie, was played by Sacha Baron Cohen. Traditionally, it's played by a woman in the theaters, from what I was told. So it was played by a woman in this. She also plays the beggar woman. And so... there's a sequence where she basically tells Sweeney Todd that she knows his real identity. And so they get into this fight. And literally, so they're tussling in front of the table. And literally, the actor that plays Sweeney Todd stares right at me. and goes, "Move!" at the top of his lungs. And I thought, oh, okay, that's just funny. He's kind of looking at me. And then he shouts it again. He says, "Move!" So we all kind of looked at each other. So we all kind of scooched back down a little bit. And he goes and he slams the actress that's playing Pirelli into the seat right next to me. And they're tussling almost on my lap. And
awesome.
It was amazing. And so then I guess he knocks her out cold, and she literally rests her head on my shoulder. So I'm just sitting there looking, and I'm like, oh, okay. And Julie's next to me. She's got a big smile on her face. And, and there's just stuff like that throughout the whole thing. Like, there's times where the actor literally is looking right at you, or if they're in a scene where it's supposed to be a crowded sequence, they'll kind of like mutter to you. Like, there was a sequence where the guy was, they were doing the scene where they do the barber challenge, basically where Pirelli and Sweeney Todd do a shave off. And so while they're getting ready, the guy that's sitting in the barber's chair turns to me and goes, "Oh, like maybe you'll be next," or something. They have this little conversation and it's kind of just, the whole thing is like that. So the guy that played Sweeney Todd was phenomenal, and he's actually been in a bunch of stuff. He was in Broadway. He was known as actually the first African American to play the Phantom, which was pretty interesting. And he's been on Scandal, I guess, repeatedly. He plays Edison Davis on Scandal. I don't watch that show, so I apologize to not knowing much about it. But he's been in a bunch of other things. He was in Gotham, Blue Bloods, The Blacklist.
Oh, wow.
He was in The Winter's Tale. So he's got a pretty decent resume here. He was actually in Sex and the City too. And he's phenomenal because he's a big hulking guy. And he's a lot more freaky than Johnny Depp, I'll tell you, when he's coming at you with razor blades. Yeah. So, and just the whole cast was phenomenal. And one of the coolest things I thought was interesting is when during the intermission they ask you to leave. They make you leave the pie shop / stage area. And I say stage loosely because it really wasn't a stage. The whole room you were in essentially is a stage. So they go to they have everyone go out, and then about 2 or 3 minutes before where it's about the time we would be going back in, the actor that plays Toby, which is the first Pirelli's sidekick, and then works for Mrs. Lovett and Sweeney Todd at the pie shop, their sidekick, he just literally stands up. Well, he plays a xylophone first to play the little theme to Sweeney Todd. Then he just stands up on this table and just starts doing that whole "Ladies and Gentlemen, if you please," that song. And I'm not going to sing it, but basically that song. And he basically starts the play out in the waiting room to get everyone to go back into the pie shop. And he has everyone go in, and then the pie shop is totally now fancy, much more fancier than it was because now that they're making money by serving the.
Oh, that is super cool.
Yeah, I was like, oh my god. I was like, because I saw the actor. It was funny. He came up, and where Julie and I happened to be standing was right where he did this. And we just thought we're standing off to the side. And I was literally about to kind of tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, you did a great job in there. And all of a sudden he just starts up the thing. I'm like, whoa, good thing I didn't say anything there. I mean, if you haven't seen that play anywhere, it's a great play. And the movie just doesn't do it justice. And to see it this way, though, is just incredible. It's almost as if, you're involved in it. Like, I made a joke. I had said that we were so involved that we should have had, like, a credit in the playbill. And, they did it. It was cool. With the effects that they did were pretty good. Like, whenever Sweeney did a kill with the piano player, it was a live piano player, a couple of live musicians off to the side there, the piano player would blow this really, like, ear-piercing whistle sound to be like a screech, and these big red lights would come on to simulate the blood. But actually, in certain sequences, he would come down the stairs with like a lot of stage blood on him, and it was like literally dripping on the floor next to you. So,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so I was like, wow. I said that is great. And he'd always have this blood all over his shirt, and the actors would come down with the blood on their faces. So they didn't hold back. And this is definitely not play for children anyway. This version, absolutely not, as they don't cut anything out, and they there's a lot of it's mostly implied gore, but you see fake blood and stuff like that. So it was. I couldn't. If you're in the New York area, I cannot recommend not going out to try and get tickets to that. I think they just extended the run actually through to December now, so which is pretty good. And it's to get to get the tickets are, could be a little more challenging because I don't know how many they have, but since I said it's in a little pie shop kind of a setting, there's not so many seats for each performance. So, I have a feeling that's why, they were quick to extend it because it really became really popular and it already won some award I saw for best revival of some sort.
Yeah, that'd be really interesting because, Kevin does a lot of theater and I always feel awkward sitting on the front row. Even those are non-interactive plays. I still feel kind of weird because I feel like the actors can see me. So
this one, yeah,
I would be super nervous, I think.
Oh yeah, because like I said, they interact. Like there was one, and one other sequence. It's thank God I had a full head of hair because during the Pirelli sequence, they had the Toby go running out and literally be putting this tonic on any bald head they could find. So yeah, and awesome. I was like, whoa, yeah, and one girl, I think he someone got his arm put around the girl in front of him. So it seemed like we had like the magic seat. I mean, we had a lot of stuff going on in our seat, and it was just like, they were like slamming plates down. So it's like if you actually with your jump scare thing, you could be you might have a little difficult time in that thing because there's sequences where they like scream and yell and slam plates and stuff.
I would have to do it though. It sounds too cool not to try.
Oh yeah, it's phenomenal, and so just a little thing right before it, since we were in the Village right down the street is and I had mentioned this to you I think on your upcoming visit, the Jekyll and Hyde Pub or club technically, but this one's more of a pub feel. There's two locations. This is the one in the Village, so it's definitely more of a little pub style thing. So we just went in there to before because Julie had never been there. And it's really cool because there's a lot of, skeletons hung out, and it's really made to look like this old, creepy English pub. And there's every so often there's almost like a Chuck E. Cheese type of thing where there's this little animatronic thing that does skull thing that sings it up in the corner, and they're playing like old Vincent Price movies, and they have all these cool themed mixed drinks. And one of the coolest things is the bathrooms are all kind of like hidden in the hallway in the back, but you kind of push a bookshelf open. And that's where the bathroom is. So you kind of got to look on the shelf to see the clue, which is the men's, which is the woman's. Or you may be in for a nice surprise.
That's awesome.
So yeah, but I'm definitely putting that on the list to take you to see. If not one, both. I'm not both. One of them at least. One of those Jekyll and Hyde. The other one is a lot more theatrical, where I haven't been there in a while, so I don't know if they still do this. But they used to have this big kind of like Frankenstein monster set kind of thing in the center. And it was 3 levels, and so you could see this whole show going on in the middle. I don't know if they still do that. I'll have to look into that. But the pub one is definitely more a little artsy, because it's in Greenwich Village. So
yeah,
kind of got a cool thing.
I can't wait for that. We're definitely going to try to when we go up for the New York trip. We're definitely going to try to get some material for the podcast, kind of on the side, doing some of these cool horror related things. So
yeah, we'll definitely be probably lighting up Instagram and all the other social media things, and who knows what else we'll get out of it. Maybe we'll just do some live, recordings.
Yeah, it'd be a shame not to do some little live recording while we're up there together.
Yeah, no, and even if we, we walk around with I have those little, tiny mics that I bring to the theme parks. We can just put those into our iPhone, get some live reaction shots to stuff. So
cool. Well, I was actually not feeling too well on Thursday and Friday, so I was kind of working from home and putting audio commentaries on in the background on occasion. So I got through quite a bit of my backlog roulette here. The first one I had, this is kind of a cheat because I actually watched this one a couple of weeks ago, but I put it in today's rundown because I had not talked about it before. But I finally watched The Woman in Black, and this is the remake starring Harry Potter. And
poor guy will never get rid, no matter what he does.
I know, I'm being mean. Daniel Radcliffe. This is actually a Hammer horror movie. They still make movies.
I didn't realize that, actually.
Yeah, this is a Hammer production, and I really enjoyed it. Now, I will say, Jumpscare City. God, this thing's got so many freaking jump scares. But the one, remember the one I told you about, the original one? The BBC production was the same way. It had probably the biggest jump scare I've ever had in my life, where I almost flipped over a couch. This one wasn't quite that bad, but it still had tons of jump scares. But I will say, if it's a well-crafted jump scare, even though I don't like it, I appreciate it. And every jump scare in this one was well crafted. There was nothing really cheap about it. So in that respect, I actually really liked the movie, despite all the times I about had a heart attack. That's a good one. The Woman in Black.
Now there was a sequel, right? But he didn't do the sequel,
he
right?
did not do the sequel. I have not watched the sequel. I almost don't care to watch the sequel because I don't want to have another heart attack. But if it ever comes up in the old roulette wheel, I guess I'll have to take a look at it.
Yeah, see, actually, I don't think I had. I know I have the first one. I don't think I have the second one on Blu-ray. But I do. I know. I saw. I think it was on cable once. I got to see. I didn't get to catch all of it, so I kind of stopped watching it because I was in the middle of it and I didn't want to. I wanted to do it justice.
Right.
So but now that I think I might have to. That might have to be one that I move up in the planned watching list.
Yeah, that was a good one. The next one that came up was I thought would be a real miss. It's called Rise of the Zombies. Now you may wonder why I have some of these kind of weird, offbeat, not good movies in my collection. It's because I signed up for Horror Pack for a couple months just to try it out. And I will say, for the price, I mean, you get a lot of movies. You get like I think for the Blu-ray, you at least got 4 Blu-rays. But as you might expect, they're not all going to be winners. They're going to pack some cheap stuff in there. So this is one of those, and it stars Mariel Hemingway, LeVar Burton, and Danny Trejo. If that tells you anything,
there's a trio of where they pulled each one of them.
I'm not
from
trying to be
at
mean,
the time.
but I mean, you could kind of tell. But I will have to say, it was about the quality of a decent Sci-Fi Channel movie. So it wasn't terrible. I mean, even though we kind of laugh at the list of celebrities I just mentioned, they've had long and storied careers. These aren't hacks. They're not fresh off the street or anything.
Oh yeah, no, I wasn't laughing at them individually. I was laughing at the combo of them.
Yeah, so
it was those three to put together.
Granted, they're not A-listers by any means, but I'm saying, they're competent, obviously. So they actually did really good performances, and it played out like an extended episode of The Walking Dead, which you wouldn't know anything about, Brian.
I know.
I'm still going to guilt trip you in because of that, but
I know I need to get on those.
It was it was fine, as EB from Coaster Radio might say. It was fine.
Yeah.
So,
we'll need to get that sound drop for him.
Yeah.
And we'll just
it was
add
fine.
it in.
The last one I watched was The Possession, not to be confused with the other 20 movies called The Possession.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm glad you specified the year and some people in it, because I would have been like, okay, which one did he watch?
Yeah, so this was from 2012, and it stars Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who plays Negan in The Walking Dead, which you wouldn't know anything about, Brian.
I actually did know that he was in that, though.
Okay.
I know. I actually know Negan, and he's got a bat.
Okay.
So,
well, I've always loved Jeffrey Dean Morgan, even before he played Negan. I always liked him as an actor. And
oh yeah, I mean, think about it. He was in Is It Supernatural?
Yeah.
He was the comedian in Watchmen.
Yeah, so I always liked him. And then it had Kyra Sedgwick. And I did not expect much at all out of this movie. It was just another horror pack one that I got, didn't really ask for. But this one was not bad. It was actually kind of fun. It's a typical I kind of laughed about it. I almost called it the Jewish Exorcist. Because it's about a girl that gets possessed because she gets like this box with all this. I'm sorry, Brian. I don't know Jewish stuff, unfortunately.
That's what. Don't worry. I'm on the ready for any questions.
But it's some box with like Hebrew script and stuff on it, and I don't know what it's called, but apparently it contains a demon, and so anyway, this girl gets it, and obviously just like any other Exorcist type show you've ever seen, she becomes possessed. But it had some cool sequences, and it was kind of fun, and it was very, I thought it was very well paced. I never lost interest in it. I mean, it's not like, it's not outstanding or anything, but but I thought it was decent.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's funny with the Jewish possession films. There's always that you already have to first deal with whatever's possessing, and then the guilt after, So, there's my Jewish humor I got to throw in there, That's my humor that sustained me for 5,000 years.
So that is The Possession 2012. Not bad. Good for a rental.
Yeah, I think I might have to try this horror thing. You can cancel it at any time. The horror crate.
Yeah, it's just like any of those loot crates or anything. But I actually kind of want to start it back because now they didn't do this when I tried it, but now they do like a limited edition Blu-ray.
Oh,
in every pack. In which, I mean, I'm not saying that the movie is going to be necessarily good, but it's at least something extra that you probably can't get, just from Amazon or whatever. So that's kind of cool.
Now, does everyone get the same box? Like, if you and I did it, we'd get the same thing every month?
Yeah, you can sign up for a DVD box or a Blu-ray box, which I always obviously went for the Blu-ray. But yes, everybody gets the same disc.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, maybe we should, you do it 6 months, I'll do it 6 months.
I actually thought about, I floated the idea of doing either that or Horror Block or one of the horror crates, just so we could do an unboxing episode on one of them.
Oh, that would be fun.
It's a little...
Oh, that reminds me of those shop at home guys. Do you remember that? Do you ever see those guys that did the sports cards and the Pokemon and and the Beanie Babies like, it's a Mark McGuire rookie card, like those guys?
Yeah, I mean, those are very popular on YouTube too. But I thought that would be kind of fun. I just got to justify the costs because they can get pretty pricey.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that behind the scenes. So, and I'll tell you that. And if we get bad ones, we could do a reboxing episode where we close it back up and ship it away.
Or we do like we make the Coaster Radio prize closet. It's just a box full of our junk that we don't want anymore. We'll give it out as prizes.
Yeah, but don't worry. It's not the contest we spoke about. You're not going to get something.
The first contest, we're going to have good prizes.
Yes, you will get a good prize.
And then I watched a ton of, like I said, I was working from home, so I just put audio commentaries on in the background and just let them roll. So I watched all 3 audio commentaries on Sleepaway Camp, which 2 of them are really good, and one of them is absolutely god-awful. It's probably one of the worst commentaries I've ever heard. The director of Sleepaway Camp, God bless him, he is not the picture of personality, and there was times where he was basically just refusing to answer the moderator's question. Literally, he would ask him a question and he would just brush it aside. It was awful. Felissa Rose was in the 3rd commentary with him, and that one was a lot better because anytime he was just being clam-mouthed about something, she would speak up, so it kind of helped. But that middle commentary where it's just him and the website guy from the Sleepaway Camp website, that's the only 2. God-awful commentary. Don't even bother.
Did Felissa Rose explain why she wasn't at the Little Rock or whatever the Rock?
No. Now the new, I believe it's the newest commentary. It's her and the kid. Her and the kid, like who that is.
Yeah, right.
Her and her co-star, the boy, her cousin or whatever in the movie. That commentary is really great because you could tell they're good friends still, and they were.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, they were just cutting up and, picking on each other and just having a grand old time. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Yeah.
And then
as Meatloaf said.
Yeah. And then I listened to both commentaries on Sinister. This was the surprise of the week in terms of my backlog roulette, because I'm not a huge fan of Sinister. I thought it was okay. I liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was decent.
It was okay. I'm not a fan of showing ghost kids. Like, if you're going to show a ghost kid, I mean, I need to see like half a second of them flitting by a hallway or something. But when you show them and I can tell it's just a kid in makeup, it just completely destroys any element of horror for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Sinister just had a little too much close-up ghost kid stuff. It just kind of took me out of the movie. But I will say, these 2 commentaries are both by the director. He does one that is all focused on directing. And then he does another one that is all focused on writing because he co-wrote it with another writer. And they are stellar commentaries. They're 2 of the best DVD commentaries I've ever heard, I would honestly say.
Wow. And you listen to a lot. So because coming from you, that's actually a really good compliment.
Right. And I would have never expected that from this movie because it's not like one of my favorite movies of all time or anything. But I was just riveted by both of these commentaries, and I just blew through them because they were so interesting about the filmmaking process and the decisions they made and things that happened on set, and all that was just fascinating. And the director sounds like a really down-to-earth guy. He's not, this was a low-budget film. And he actually recorded both of these commentaries before the movie was released. So he didn't actually know how well it was going to do, because it did quite well at the theaters. It was pretty successful.
Now, let me ask you a question on that. So now you come, asking someone that does watch a lot of commentaries. Do you find that, I know you hadn't watched this after you watched a commentary, but do you find that when you watch a commentary and it's a good one like that, you appreciate the movie more the next time you watch it?
Absolutely, yeah. In fact, I would say that the commentaries on Halloween 3 alone made me appreciate that movie. Turned me from not liking that movie at all to being a huge fan of that movie.
Oh, wow.
All because of the commentary. Because I remember when I watched it, when I got the box set and I watched the movie the first time, I had not seen it in 25 years. I didn't remember much about it. Watched the movie, I was like, ugh, that sucked. And then but I had to watch the commentaries. There was 2 or 3 on that disc as well. Like, after I got through watching the commentaries, and of course it makes you kind of watch the movie again as well. I just grew to absolutely love it. And it was because of you start to understand things that you didn't understand on the first viewing. Why did they do this? Well, now you understand why they did it. And that sometimes that makes you appreciate it more. Or you get some appreciation from the amount of effort that was put into it. It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, I find that I definitely... I have not listened to a commentary yet where I came away with a worse opinion of the movie than I did going in.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm usually like that with behind the scenes, documentaries of it. But I remember I have seen some of the commentaries on some things. I remember I think the one that funny. I mean, it's not a horror movie, but I think it was the Goonies commentary where they actually had the whole cast going through it, and they kept cutting. You could see like a little picture-in-picture of them doing it.
Oh,
so
that
was kind
sounds
of cool.
Yeah.
So things like that are kind of really fun to watch, along with the movie.
Yeah, that's all I said. If you now, granted, not all commentaries are created equal. There are some out there, like I said, that are terrible. But I would recommend if you're the type of person that just never watches a commentary, just try watching. Go look online and find like a example of a really good one, and just watch that one and see what you think, because they're really fascinating. I really feel like I get way more value out of my movies when I go through those and really take the time to kind of immerse myself in the movie from the director's standpoint, from the actor's standpoint, and the writer's standpoint. You just get a whole new perspective on it.
But yeah, and I actually have Sinister, so maybe that'll be the one I'll go to first.
Yeah, it'd definitely be a good one to start with. And the backlog this week, what I always do is when I spin the roulette wheel, I take whatever movie that comes up, obviously, and I play it, but then I also spin it again to see what's upcoming, so I know what I'm looking forward to. And the roulette gods were kind to me this week because it came up on The Witch.
Oh,
so
yes.
I'm going to be watching The Witch, which I've already started and which I just absolutely loved. I thought we almost need to do a show on that one because I have some strong feelings on that movie.
Yeah, and then plus it has one of our favorites, Anya Taylor-Joy. Did I say it right? Anya Taylor-Joy, right?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to do an episode on that one. And then I was dying because I know you got this too, Brian. We both got our Phantasm collection in.
Yes.
Which I was super, super excited for. And my roulette wheel finally landed on my Phantasm box set. So I'll be watching
wow.
I'll be watching Phantasm after The Witch.
Nice. That's a good... Yeah, and I actually got... along with my Phantasm collection this week, I got my Spider Baby edition, and it is packed with extras.
I may have to get that.
Yeah, I think I had showed you, right? I think I took a picture for the back of the box for you, and showed the list of all the different features in there. Okay, so I'm gonna pull this up for you guys, and so basically, here's it's the director approved special edition, and it has the high definition Blu-ray 1080p. And standard definition DVD presentation of the main feature. It has the original 1.0 mono audio, which says uncompressed PCM on the Blu-ray. A high definition transfer of the feature supervised and approved. High definition transfer of the feature supervised and approved by director Jack Hill. It's got subtitles. That's fine. It's got the audio commentary with Jack Hill and Sid Haig.
Oh, wow.
So right there alone, that's probably worth the price right there with that. It has the panel discussion from the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Film to Film Festival that was recorded in 2012. That has Jack Hill and Quinn K. Redeker and Beverly Washburn in it. So that's pretty good. It has a documentary called The Hatching of Spider Baby, which was, it had more interviews with Jack Hill, Sid Haig, Mary Mitchell, fan Joe Dante, and more in the making of the film. Then it has Spider Stravinsky, The Cinema Sounds of Ronald Stein, which he's the composer of The Terror and The Attack of the 50-Foot Woman, among others. And he's remembered by Harleen Stein, Jack Hill, American Cinematheque's Chris D, and others.
Wow.
Then it's got something called The Merry House Revisited. And it says Jack Hill revisits the original house that was used as the main location of the film, an alternate opening and title sequence, an extended scene, the original trailer, a gallery of behind-the-scene images. Then it also contains The Host from 1960, which is Jack Hill's early short film featuring Sid Haig in his first starring role. So, and then actually the case itself has a reversible sleeve, which has the original and newly commissioned artwork by Graham Humphreys. So
I'm gonna have to pick that up.
Yeah.
Awesome.
and there's a collector's booklet featuring writing on the film by artist and writer I think Stephen Bissett, and an extensive article from reprinted from Film Facts, the magazine of unusual film and television, featuring interviews with the cast and crew, illustrated with original stills and artwork. So that is a packed disc for $24. That I was so excited when I saw that cover, because Amazon it usually is so good at telling you what's coming on that disc, basically gave you nothing on that disc. So when I got it and I looked at the back, I texted Tim right away and showed him the image of it, and I mean, just reading it now, I'm like, wow, what a purchase. So yeah, Tim, I would jump on that, because there was only like 4 left, I think, when I ordered it.
Yeah, I'll probably go ahead and I'll have to break my backlog rule for that one.
Yeah, that one's a must.
So let's move on to the disc memberment for Blu-ray releases for 5/16. Man, this is a good week because I'm going to be spending some money. I hate to say it. I know, yep. I know. I got a backlog, but I got to get these two.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that have to break that rule.
Yeah, so I'll go through the ones I'm not that interested in first. First, we have Inquisition from 1978, which is a period piece about a witchfinder general. Those are always fun.
Witchfinder general.
Has there ever? I guess there's been a couple of good movies about the Inquisition and witches and stuff, but
every time you say Inquisition, I'm thinking of Mel Brooks.
I always think of Nobody Expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah.
And then we have, actually the rest of these are actually all pretty good. We have Willard from 1971 and Ben from 1972. I remember I begged my mom to rent Ben, all because of that Michael Jackson song.
I was going to say, is that the one with the Michael Jackson song?
That's the only reason I wanted to watch the movie, because I thought it was like I thought it was about a boy with a pet mouse.
Yeah. And funny, when I was introduced to it before, I didn't even know what movie it was. When I was a kid, I had one of those battery-powered organs, and I guess my mom had got me a songbook to try and learn, but it had the basics, so you could really pretty much play anything through it. It didn't have like high musical notes or anything. I just think it had numbers, so you could match it with your with the keys, and that was in there. That Michael Jackson song was one of the songs in that book.
Yeah, so I was in for a rude awakening, I will say, but I believe I went back and did rent Willard and Ben way back. I don't remember much about them at all. And
they remade Willard, right?
They did with Crispin Glover, yeah.
Right,
and I actually saw that one too, but I don't remember much about it. I'm not if I saw a rat in real life, I would freak out, but like in movies and stuff, they don't bother me. So
yeah.
There's
well, living in New York, I've seen enough that that I think I freak out seeing it live, dead, movie, whatever.
Then we have one I'm looking forward to because I'm a sucker for these movies, which is Resident Evil: The Final Chapter, which came out last year.
Right, and I have to get it because I bought that box set for next to nothing. $14 for all other five ones before it. So.
And I don't think I've ever understood a single Resident Evil movie, but I still watch them. I don't know.
Yeah, I remember the first one. I liked it, and I was a massive fan of the games. I mean, when that came out, that revolutionized the horror genre in video games, and I still remember that original PlayStation game. Playing that game, they tell you, oh, turn the lights down, and sitting there, my friends and I were playing it, and then when the giant spider came out, I was like, wow, I said, this thing is freaky. I mean, I never ever said that about a game.
I've heard the newest one's really good. I haven't played it yet, though.
Yeah, I haven't either. I have a couple of horror games that I need to play. I still got to finish that the park. I'm midway through that one. Get it midway through that one. That was a bit. That was yeah.
And
that was
Brian
terrible.
was fired from the podcast.
Yeah, there I go.
I'll be doing this solo next week, guys.
Yep.
We have. This is what I was looking for. That I thought originally was not a good week, but was re-releases of Dracula Untold, all the Mummy movies. And I'm talking about the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies and Van Helsing. So you could tell that Universal or whoever does. I don't know if it's Universal who does those, but whoever's releasing these is trying to capitalize on the upcoming Mummy movie.
Yeah.
Obviously. They're re-releasing all this stuff with like Fandango tickets attached and that kind of thing. So that's why those are being re-released.
Yeah, I'm not buying those again. I'll tell you. I think I have them already, and somewhere up there. And I'm not gonna. Yeah. I think I have them on DVD and Blu-ray. I rebought. And again, don't get me wrong. The first two I enjoyed a lot. I think it was the third one.
Yeah, and when they started doing Scorpion King and all that.
Yeah,
And Van Helsing was terrible. I was really disappointed in that one.
Yeah,
because of the CGI, like the really bad CGI. But there's something that makes up for all that, Brian.
Yes, I believe you are dead on with this one.
And that is you heard me talk about the Frankenstein Legacy Collection that I had. And I believe the Wolfman Legacy Collection is already out. Those are the two that have been released so far. But what we're getting this week is the Mummy Complete Legacy Collection. That includes the Mummy, the Mummy's Hand, the Mummy's Tomb, the Mummy's Ghost, the Mummy's Curse, and Abbott and Costello Meet the Mummy.
See, to me, that is such a fun bonus to throw in there.
Yeah.
That they have those Abbott and Costello, because that was a thing my dad and I used to watch. They used to air in New York the Abbott and Costello movies every Sunday.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. They put those in there. And then the other one, which is also a must-buy, is the Dracula Complete Legacy Collection. And that includes Dracula, Dracula's Daughter, Son of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, House of Dracula, and then Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Now,
yeah, how does that bleed into Frankenstein?
I guess there's some crossover there because the House of Frankenstein and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein are also in the Frankenstein Legacy Collection. So for me, I'm kind of double dipping there. I don't have a choice, but those are two that are on both sets. So just be aware of that. But I failed to mention these are the original Universal 1930s movies. This is the classics. Absolutely got to have those. Now I don't believe I've ever seen the original Spanish Dracula, which a lot of people say is better than the American version.
And that one's in here?
And that one, I believe that one is in here, yes.
Now, is there, I'm dying to pull the trigger on these, and then end up picking up the Wolfman and the Frankenstein one, but is there plans, or was there one already where they have a box set of all the Universal monster movies? I thought I remember seeing one once.
They released a set on DVD back in the day that had, I don't believe it was all of them, but I had a set that included four, and I still got them, it included four mini busts of Dracula, Frankenstein, Wolfman, and it had a ton of movies in there. And I remember I let somebody borrow it. I don't think they ever gave it back, but it was...
Oh, no.
Which I don't care anymore because I've moved on to Blu-ray, but I don't think it had... I can't say that it had everything, but it had a lot of those classic Universal films on it. It was a huge set. It was probably the biggest DVD set I've ever owned. So.
Okay, because part of me wanted to jump on these, but then I'm afraid they're going to come out with this no pun intended monster set of every one of these things, and with a new bonus disc and a new.
Nah, I would jump on these, especially.
You think?
Yeah,
and so, what are they like? They're not bad. They're like about $40, right? I think.
Not even that. You can get.
Oh, they're not.
No,
even?
you can get the. I believe the Mummy is like $25 right now. $26.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, I might have to jump on those right now.
Yeah,
then.
especially if you typically with Amazon with these sets, if you pre-order them, you end up getting them a little cheaper than later on.
Oh, right, because they do that pre-order price match thing they call it.
Right. So I'm pretty sure both of those are available for about $26 right now. I think I'm going to go ahead and jump on them.
Yeah, I know what I'll be doing right after the podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we only had one theatrical release for May 12th, and that was called Dead Awake, and it's something about sleep paralysis, so a sleep paralysis movie. Now, Brian, I don't know if you've ever watched The Nightmare on Netflix. Have you seen that?
No.
That is, you need to watch that. It's one of the scariest documentaries you'll ever see, but it is a documentary about people who have sleep paralysis and night terrors, and they're interviewing these people about what they see when they have this sleep paralysis, and then they reenact what the people are seeing.
Oh.
And it is absolutely terrifying.
But it's a documentary?
But it is a documentary. It's not a fictional movie. So they'll be, a guy will be telling you, well, I see these black shadow people and they're walking through, and then they're showing on the screen, they're showing like a reenactment of these black shadow people walking into a bedroom. It is horrifying.
Yikes.
It's one of the scariest.
I gotta see this.
Yeah, it's one of the scariest documentaries I've ever seen. It used to be on, at least it used to be on Netflix. It probably still is. So go look for that one.
Well, between Netflix, Shudder, and Amazon Prime, apparently, this guy got 3 choices to find this.
Yeah, it's called.
Hopefully, it'll be on one of them.
Yeah, it's called The Nightmare. I think it's got a pillow on the cover. It's really scary.
I don't know. It just sounds funny. I saw that one. What was the other one with the sleep prayer? The one with Hayden Christensen in it, where he it was him and was it Jessica Alba? Where it was like we thought he was dead, but he really wasn't.
Oh God, no! I banned Hayden Christensen from my mind after the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah, but this one wasn't.
I know that's not fair. He's a better actor than that, but I know.
Yeah, no, but what was the movie called now? I gotta pull this up now. It was Awake. It was called. Yeah, that's what it was called, Awake. So it was pretty close to this one, I guess. Dead Awake. This one, his was Awake.
Well, are you ready to dive into this trilogy?
I guess. Well, the first, it starts off really good.
It starts off good. So, to preface this, I'm not going to go into the Japanese versions, Ringu, Ringu 2, Ringu 0.
That'll just make our head hurt.
I was trying to research it before the podcast because I was like, I need to talk intelligently about the Japanese versions of these films. I couldn't make it. I was so confused by the time I got rid of, figuring out what was in what order and how this related to. I was like, we're just going to scratch it and just go with the U.S. remake. So.
Well, considering they blend it with The Grudge, it seems like on half of them.
So forgive me, I'm not going to go into the original Japanese films, but The Ring came out in 2002, and I apologize. I have in the past, you probably have heard me on the podcast talk about the 90s fad of Japanese horror, and then while I was doing this researching for this podcast, I realized Japanese horror was not a 90s fad; it was a 2000s fad. So I was off.
It just shows our age.
It shows our age. The decades all start blending together. So
yeah,
I was off by 10 years. But in my defense, the originals were in the 90s, late.
Yeah,
90s.
See.
But The Ring really kicked off the Japanese horror fad in the U.S., I believe, because it was so successful. Like I said, it came out in 2002. It was directed by Gore Verbinski, of all people. So, I mean, he's a great director.
Yeah.
Written by Aaron Kruger, starring Naomi Watts, which is a terrific actress. Martin Henderson, Brian Cox, who's only in it for 4 minutes, but man, I love Brian Cox.
Yeah, he's one of those guys that whatever he's just whatever you put him in, you're getting 180% of
right.
A performance.
And, honest to God, the original Hannibal Lecter. I mean, he's top notch. And then, like I said, he's in the when we talked about last week, the Autopsy of Jane Doe. He's in that.
Oh, right. Yeah. And he when he does comedy, he's amazing in it. So it's so he's one of those actors you pretty much can count on anything from him being good.
Right. So when this one came out, it made $128 million at the box office, which was absolutely huge for a horror film.
Yeah, I mean, even you look at it now, it's like, wow, only 128 million, but at the time, that was much bigger than it is now, obviously. And yeah, and right for a horror movie,
right. So this one kicked off a ton of well, of course, they remade The Grudge, they did Dark Water, they made oh my gosh, there was one about, was it One Missed Call? Maybe?
Yes,
that one.
Yeah.
So you got this string of copycats. For better or for worse, which The Grudge was actually decent. The remake of that was okay. Yeah, when this came out, I remember it was a pretty big phenomenon, and I loved this movie. I went and saw it at the theater. As soon as it came out on DVD, I bought it. I watched it multiple times, and it's still. I was really curious because I haven't watched it in a number of years. I was really curious to see if it still held up, because the whole Japanese horror trend has kind of died away and has been forgotten. So I was kind of curious to see if it would hold up, especially taking place on VHS tapes, or if it would just seem, like a Seinfeld episode, horribly dated. Jerry's carrying around the giant cordless phones and stuff. I'm always like, God,
right.
The show's so good, but it's so 90s. But I was pleasantly surprised watching this again. It holds up really, really well, I thought.
Oh no! It did. You almost don't even. Being children of the '80s too. I don't. It doesn't. It's not as obscure to us to see a videotape going around,
right?
Maybe to kids nowadays who stumble upon this would be like, why is it on? Why is it on a videotape? What is that?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. We have a frame of reference for that. Which
we knew when that was a thing,
So I'll go through a quick overview of it for anybody who hasn't seen The Ring or is unfamiliar with the premise. So the premise is there's this videotape with these disturbing images on it, and if you watch it, your phone rings, and there's some mysterious voice on the other line that says 7 days. Within 7 days, if you don't make a copy of this videotape and give it to somebody else, you will die.
Yes. I will just add one thing. It's technically more like 7 days.
Yeah, Brian does it much better than I do.
Because, just hearing Tim in his dulcet tone say 7 days, I'd be like, oh, what? 7 days till what,
Yeah, yours is much scarier. But when I was watching this, I was kind of struck. I was like, oh, man, this is sort of like It Follows. I didn't think it. I did not.
What I was thinking.
Yeah, I was sitting there going, I was like, oh, my God, It Follows. It's not that original.
It's funny that but if you compare the two, It Follows definitely did it better.
Right. But so as you come to find out in the movie, the killer, if you will, the villain, is a young girl named Samara, who was basically killed by her mother by being dropped in a well, and she happened to stay alive for 7 days before she died. So for some reason, it's a different reason every movie, but for some reason she's killing people who don't watch this weird videotape that shows the well and her mom and all these kind of clues to what happened to her.
Right.
Sort of like a ghostly, the ghost is telling you where they're buried, that kind of thing, kind of this, the ghost giving hints from beyond, because they're not at peace, kind of thing.
And it's funny because it's you find it, like Tim said, it's something different in every movie. We'll get to that as we do the whole summary of it. But it is funny in this one. I guess Naomi Watts just happens to be a reporter who stumbles upon this because I guess her niece is the first victim in the film that we see. So how convenient that she's being able to research this. So she ends up watching the tape herself and now kind of limits herself. Now she's given herself 7 days to figure this out.
Right, and I was really impressed that they went with such a well-known. You had a master director, such a great actress as Naomi Watts. They really poured a lot of investment into this movie, and I believe that's why it was so successful. They could have easily done this with a lesser-known director, a no-name cast, and it probably wouldn't have been nearly as successful or nearly as good.
No, because if you look at the third one, that's other than two actors that I could think of, the rest of the cast was unknown, and they were not good to me, and, and that took me out of the movie most of the time. So
I think the fact that they just went with a really A-list cast and director is what makes this movie rise above a lot of the other generic horror movies out there. But speaking of that, the opening to this movie is fantastic. It kind of reminds me of the opening to Scream.
Right, exactly what that's like.
Yeah, one of those classic horror movie openings that just kind of sets the tone for the whole movie.
Yeah, and that's Amber Tamblyn in the beginning, who's done a couple of. She did a few horror movies, but I think most people know her from that the Traveling Pants movie, whatever that.
Right. But it kind of, just to go through I'm not going to go scene by scene through this movie, but this one's worth pointing out. But there's two teenage girls, and they're kind of home, and they start talking about the videotape, sort of like a urban legend type discussion. And, it kind of escalates and gets creepier and creepier to the point where you're not sure if this is real or if it's not, until she ends up being killed, which you don't see on screen per se until later. And this sets up which is one of my all-time favorite jump scares. Now, when I saw this in the theater, I swear to God, I probably jumped 5 feet out of my seat. And
Olivia probably ran out and said, I don't know him.
It's one of the most brilliant jump scares because it comes out of absolutely nowhere. And it does not happen at the beginning of the movie when she actually dies. It happens later in the movie when I believe Naomi Watts is at the funeral.
Right, they're just describing.
Yeah, and she's talking to Amber Tamblyn's mom about it, and they're just having a normal conversation. There's nothing leading up to this, and then her mom says something like, well, I saw her, or I saw it, or whatever, basically explaining she saw the body, and there's a quick cut to this girl's body, and it is absolutely terrifying. It's one of the most unexpected jump scares I've ever seen in a movie, and it's so well done. Like, even when I was watching this, I've seen this movie 5 or 6 times at least. Even when I was watching it for the podcast, I was nervous getting to that part because I knew it was coming and I didn't want to see it. But
and it's just a horrible distorted face that she has, and it's really it is creepy.
Yeah, and she kind of does this thing where her head, like, it moves, like her head, like, drops.
Yeah, like it's almost as if it's got nothing holding it up anymore, and it's just
so you see this like horrible distorted face, and then her head just drops. Oh my God, it is extremely terrifying. But I love it because of that, because it's so bold to just stick a scare in there like that is so extreme right in the middle of just a normal conversation that nobody saw it coming.
Yeah, and they don't. There's no musical cue to it, to leading up to it. There's no musical sound like a or anything when it happens. It just the image.
Yeah, you almost never see that in horror movies because it's too extreme. Like, I guess they always feel like they got to pull their punches. They got to give you a musical cue, or they got to, or they have to do the obvious misdirection, which everybody knows is coming if you've watched any number of horror films. But man, this one's completely hardcore, like out of nowhere, and I loved it. Yeah, no, me too. That was and I was the same way with you. You never see that one coming. Yeah. What struck me rewatching this again was there's not, in terms of a typical mainstream horror movie, and when I say mainstream, I'm talking like a big budget studio movie, which this obviously is. It's fairly slow paced, and I'm not talking about not keeping your interest, but in terms of there's not a whole lot of there's not a high body count. You don't have a whole lot of like horror scenes per se. A lot of it is Naomi doing research, basically. it's a lot of her digging into the backstory. And I'm not saying it's boring, because in the first movie, at least, it's actually really interesting because you don't know, you're kind of discovering along with her what is causing all this.
Right, and they do pepper it with some cool scenes where either she'll like hack up that hair ball or whatever with the little, I guess what was that, the EKG thing, right?
Yeah,
I guess
there's a good little dream sequence there. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, or the horse.
Yeah,
sequence on that, which is a crazy sequence. I remember some people had a lot of issue with that one because, this poor horse gets it. And, it was, so they keep it moving enough to where, and they keep it interesting enough. I mean, I think that's probably, in all honesty, what killed the second one was that, like you said, you're finding out along as she does what's going on. The second one, you already know the deal, and you're just trying to figure out now why this time,
Right.
And it's
I think that's the reason it works in the first one, because you are just as curious. You've never heard of this tape. You're discovering along with the characters what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen, and so you're invested in the story and why this is happening. And there's a constant sense of dread throughout. I noticed it when I was watching The Witch, which we'll talk about when we do that episode, but there aren't a lot of horror movies that never give you comic relief. Most horror movies will give you some little bit of comic relief here and there just to break the tension. The Witch does not at all.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And that's one of the reasons I loved it so much. But I would argue that The Ring is kind of in that category. I'm trying to think of a situation where there's any kind of let up, but most of all, that movie is just gray, bleak, and very tense the entire film.
Yeah, and I wrote that down as a note too, is that the whole thing was almost as if they had a gray filter on it or something.
Mm-hmm.
It was always dark and so that you never could feel like, oh wow, a nice sunny day. No, you never got that. You were always in the dread and the muck of whatever they were going through, and it was always a cloudy day in there, right? Yeah, so that kind of kept you in that whole mood with it, that you were always like tense at some level, even though it was slow and there wasn't a traditional build-up. It was just, it was just that whole, the whole theme throughout.
Yeah, and if it's done well, that tension, that underlying tension that doesn't relent, is enough to keep you invested in the movie without boring you, because you keep expecting something to happen, and sometimes that's just as good as something happening in terms of keeping the viewer's interest. As long as they feel like something is about to happen, they're not bored, and that's where when we move to the second movie, I think we got some of that got lost in translation. But let's talk a little bit about the child actor that was in this, because he was super creepy.
Yeah, he was, and the fact that he never called her mom.
Yeah, he always called her Rachel, which that drives me insane. I don't know why. I don't know if it's like a Simpsons thing where he calls Bart.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems so disrespectful to me, which I know is not. Apologies to anybody whose children call them by their first name. But
yeah, I always remember that Brady Bunch episode where Greg decided to call him, "Hey, morning, Mike, morning, Carol," because he wanted to be in there.
Yeah,
what about Mom and Dad?
It just rubs me the wrong way, but I don't know. So that kind of freaked me out. Now, he's not supposed to be creepy in the movie, really. He's supposed to be very precocious. So
right.
He's very, he's almost like, I don't know, what is he, 8 maybe in the movie? It's almost like he's as much of a caretaker for his mom as his mom is to him.
Right, like he leaves her laundry out for her.
Yeah, she's looking for a dress and he's already got it laid out for her, that kind of thing. So he's obviously very intelligent.
Well, you know what? It's funny. The one sequence one point in that little sequence that really hit it home for me is that he tied his own tie, that little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't even tie my own tie now without 25 minutes of redoing it. And this kid's 8 years old, and he's not only got his mom's thing out, but he's tying his own tie without a father figure in in the picture at all.
Right, but he's interesting. I liked him. I mean, he does a great job for a child actor in this movie. He kind of reminded me of Haley Joel Osment in The Sixth Sense, where he's one of those child actors that you're like, this kid's like sharp. He's not just a normal. You could tell he was probably like that in real life a little bit. Kind of very bright.
Yeah, did he go on to anything else? I don't remember.
He did.
Seeing
He's
him
still
in
acting.
else.
He's still acting.
Oh, he is?
Yeah, he's done. I think he was in, and I'd have to look it up. But he was in. He's been in a couple of other horror films as an older. But you wouldn't recognize him. He looks completely different now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he got taller and longer and lankier, and I had actually seen some of the other movies he'd been in and never had a clue.
Oh,
it was him. But. So I think he does help the movie because he adds to that tension because he's kind of creepy, but he's also kind of likable.
Yeah.
So he's not one of those child actors that you're going, ugh, I just can't stand that kid whenever he's on screen. It's
no, and he was one of the actual bright spots in the second one.
Right.
You could, along with one other thing, I would say with Sissy Spacek, in the second one. Other than that, I mean, that second one was just, yeah. But we'll get to that, I guess.
Well, we can kind of go ahead and wrap up the first one.
True.
Yeah. It does end in another one of those iconic scenes in horror movie history, which I remember when it came out. I remember the theater just going crazy when this happened. Now, watching it back this time, I wasn't quite as impressed, just because it's been many years since this came out, but was when Samara crawls out of the TV. I mean, people flipped out when that happened.
Oh yeah, and the look, that was kind of that whole beginning of also, and I forgive me if I am not correct on this, but I don't know if this is a signature of the Japanese horror movies, but that almost like jump cut where they walk and and then they're up like another couple of inches kind of thing. And then
yeah, I remember seeing that in the first time I really remember seeing that was in House on Haunted Hill, that remake.
Oh, right. That was in there, wasn't it?
Yeah, where they do like the kind of like fast motion, like head bob shaky thing.
You're right. Yeah, with that in the like flashback sequence.
That's
right?
The first time I remember seeing that. But yeah, you're right. It has that kind of, and you see it nowadays. It's so cliched because like all ghost movies or ghost things, they have this thing where they like jerk and they jump up 5 feet or whatever, and there's like
it's like,
yeah. I mean,
it's like all right,
but
here it comes.
You got to remember at the time it hadn't been done that much, so
right. That's what I was saying. So at that time it was like, whoa, that is creepy, because yeah. And I remember, like you said, when she comes crawling out of the TV, it's like it's almost as if she crawled out of the screen into the theater with you. It was that well done, that sequence.
And throughout the movie, you get these. It's slowly building up to her like coming out of the well, but you still feel safe behind that TV screen. And so when she actually comes out of it, it was just a weird feeling, like she cannot be stopped. Like even that glass of that TV can't stop her. She's coming through, and you're gonna die no matter what. It was really a cool effect.
Yeah, and there were little hints to it, like even in the first scene when she pulls the TV out. And she but it still comes on, and then that whole water, and so there, that somehow she, whatever force at the time is trying to kill these people, it can go out of, it's in real time. It comes out into wherever they are.
Right. So let's move on to Ring 2. Now, I will say, going into this, I knew I had seen Ring 2. Absolutely knew for 100%. No shadow of a doubt I had seen this movie. I could not tell you the first thing about it.
I said the exact same thing when I was watching it. I know I had seen it. I know I've seen it twice. I remember watching it when it first came out. I didn't get to see that one in the theater. I watched it on when it came out on DVD, and I know I saw it again on cable. And for the life of me, it was as if I had never seen it.
But what's funny is I watched this a week ago, and I'm sitting here going, I don't know that I can tell you anything about this movie.
Right. Same
I watched
here.
it a week ago.
I mean, I remember a couple of sequences. That's it. I mean, I remember the kid's great performance when he kind of went to that when I guess Samara was taking him over, and he was that sweet kid calling her mommy and everything, because it was such a juxtaposition of how he was in the first movie. And the kid was phenomenal.
Right.
Pretty much probably saved that movie to make it somewhat watchable. And Sissy Spacek's portion was great in it. And I remember the deer sequence.
The deer is the only thing I vaguely remembered ever seeing.
And in all honesty, if I didn't watch the second one and someone described the deer scene, I would have assumed it was in the first one. That's how much I don't remember the second one.
Well, let's back up a second. So the second one was brought back Naomi Watts and the kid. I'm sorry, I don't have his name pulled up, but
Aiden.
Yeah, I think the actor is David Dorfman.
Oh, right. I'm sorry.
I just looked it up, but so it brings them back, which is good, because it gives that strong tie-in to the first film. But the director was an interesting choice. So they brought in, and I'm gonna murder this name. Sorry, Hideo Nakata.
Yeah, you probably got it pretty good.
He is the original director of Ringu, which is what the original film was based on. So you would think, oh man, that's a sure thing. You bring in the original Japanese director of the first movie. This is going to be awesome. But man, I don't know if he was just, I don't know if it's a style thing between a Japanese director and an American director, or if it's if he was just burned out on it, and he was just doing it by the book, or I don't know. But this movie was dull. It was just plain dull.
Yeah, I don't know what he was trying to. Maybe he was, he had this big Hollywood budget, and he just took a gamble on. You know what? I got all this money. I got these big stars. That people love it. It's a shoe-in. Who knows how they pitched this thing to him, how to do it? But it almost just seems like as he didn't have his true creative palette, because from what I heard, the original Ringu was phenomenal. I have not watched it. I really do want to see it now, even more than I did. And after especially finding out that this guy did the second one, and I'm wondering what they allowed him to do. Like, if they gave him a really strict set of guidelines on what he was allowed to do.
Yeah, I was watching this one, and I just realized that, and I think you hit on something earlier when you said we already know the story, because this one, the film more centers around the fact that I guess Samara is out to get the child at this point. So it's all about protecting Aiden and trying to keep him safe. And so that's kind of the driving force for this plot line. But
and they don't need the tape in it, apparently.
No.
In this, the tape doesn't even need to be there for people to start getting killed.
Right. And then, but you're still going through the same kind of investigative process from the first movie. But this time it's like, I don't really care anymore. Like, I thought we had this all figured out in the first movie, what she wanted. So now she wants something different, and now we got to go investigate that. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It just seemed like a rehash, and I was kind of looking at it. I was like, there's not much scary in this movie. There really isn't. And
two things too. It's like, one, they actually, when we talk about the third one real quick, there's a line in the third one actually that kind of almost sums up the why this one was like this, and which we'll get to it. And then the second point is exactly what you said you loved about the first one. This one broke that rule by putting in that ridiculous comedic scene with Gary Cole and his balloons as the realtor at the house.
Oh yeah, you're right.
And I'm just like, why? I mean, yeah, it was funny because it's Gary Cole, and I know him from his other stuff, all his Office Space and the Brady Bunch movie, and just anything he's in. I just enjoy him as an actor. So right there, it took me out of the movie, but I enjoyed his part. But I'm like, this does not belong in this movie. It totally takes you out of a movie that was already, I was struggling to hold my interest to if I even cared about what was going on in it. And now you throw this in there, and then I'm just like, ah.
Yeah, I have to say, I can only believe that it's the director's fault, because you're bringing it back the same stars. You're basing, the plot's not bad per se. I mean, it's one of the most reasonable directions you could take it, without, if you're trying to steer down the middle between going too crazy and going too close to the first plot. This is reasonable. Okay, now the son's in danger, that kind of thing.
Right.
It's not an unreasonable plot line. I just have to believe there's something about the directing that was off.
Right, and they kind of set up that they were still a target at the end, the way they ended the second one. Sorry, they ended the first one, which, she didn't want help or whatever.
Right, yeah, it felt like a natural progression between the two movies.
Right, it's just the delivery, something was missing in it.
But, so if you look at, what's the difference between the two films, it's the director. I have to believe that that's the issue. So
yeah, I mean, maybe his technique just doesn't play well. I'd like to do more research on it, actually. It makes me kind of interested, because I kind of want to see if he had any restrictions on her, or that was his intention all along, and it just didn't play well to American audiences or something. I don't know.
Yeah, you're right. I would like to see why this doesn't play as well with American audiences, or as an American film as it does. Because he did, not only did he do Ringu 2, he also did Dark Water, which is a pretty big Japanese horror film that inspired a remake over here. So
yeah, this is definitely something we need to go look into a little more, because it doesn't make sense that it would be this. I guess I don't want to say bad, because for all we know, we're just it's not that it's bad. It just maybe the original was so one way and good that this one was just a letdown, and maybe it doesn't hold up as well now. And now remember, we're watching it. Not only are we watching it after seeing the first one, which did hold up, we're watching now the one which was always far less of a quality movie, even later. So who knows?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong. There's much worse sequels to horror movies out there. This is not. This is not even. We're not talking on the same level as some of the sequels I've seen before. It's not that bad. It's just, compared to the first one, looking back on now, it's just really dull. So,
yeah, dull is the way to do it. I mean, there were still some great visuals in this. There was still a handful of great scenes. Like the deer sequence was great. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't.
The performances were great. The performances were good. Yeah.
It's almost unexplainable why. What was so off about it. Off may be the best word.
Yeah, and like I said, it's forgettable. I watched it a week ago. I can't tell you I can tell you the deer scene again.
Right.
That's about all I remember.
Yeah. I remember deer scene, the Sissy Spacek, the balloons with Gary Cole, and when Elizabeth Perkins injected herself with a needle. That's about it, what I remember. So
it's weird. It's almost scary. It's almost like it induces some kind of amnesia or something. Maybe that's what the intention was. Maybe his intention was to make it so unforgettable. Yeah, this one's interesting. Oh, yeah. Wow. But anyway, so let's move on to Rings, which that came out this year. And yes. I was actually kind of looking forward to this one because, like I said, I love The Ring. I can't say it's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, but I really liked it when it came out.
Yes. I know. It was a game changer at the time.
Right. I think it held up really well when I rewatched it for the podcast. It's still a really good movie.
Yeah, and I've seen the first one hundreds of times. Yeah. Not hundreds, but you know what I mean. Tons of times. I mean.
Yeah, it's my, I like the movie, but so I was looking forward to Rings because it's another Rings movie. Why not?
Right. And it's years later. You're interested to see where they're going to go with it. Right.
So I did not go see it at the theater because it came out to some rather scathing reviews, I would say.
I don't know about you, but it lasted about a week in the theater.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't have had time to go to the theater to see it because it was gone so quickly. And I think we've mentioned this before. There were rumors it was the Friday the 13th remake killer because it did so poorly. But
which after seeing it now makes me even angrier yes. because it's like it's not even fair to mention those two in the same sentence because they're so remotely far off from each other that I don't know how you could compare this and then say, especially with all the other dreck that comes out sometimes.
Yeah.
That, something, I think that was just some kind of rumor that someone started.
Yeah. Well, to give you some idea, this thing made $27 million.
Right.
27 million. That's all this movie made. at the box office, which is incredible to me. Like, it was just like nothing.
In comparison, that's something like I think like the Star Wars movies make those ticket sales in the first 10 minutes
right.
of ticket purchases.
I mean, not that horror movies are always blockbusters, but man, that's pretty bad especially for a franchise film of a fairly well-known franchise. But it was
It came out at a weird time, also in January. I mean, you just had some big December blockbusters.
January is where movies go to die. That's if you want to release in January, that's because your movie sucks.
Yeah, it really had everything going against it.
Yeah.
To start, and it had no big names. I mean, it had Vincent D'Onofrio, but you didn't even. I don't think, and Johnny Galecki. But in all honesty, it was advertised so poorly around here, at least. I didn't realize Johnny Galecki was in it until I saw the DVD release coming out, and I had no idea. Yeah, and I had no idea Vincent D'Onofrio was in it until I saw his name in the opening credits.
Well, this one was directed by Oh God, why directors? Man, get some better names. I murder these. F. Javier Gutierrez.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't so bad. You said that pretty good.
Javier Gutierrez. Now he has done absolutely nothing. The only one he's done was a 2008 film called Before the Fall, and before that it was just a couple of shorts. So
well, that makes sense because this is the fall of his career, possibly. And he did that one before it.
You have basically a no-name director with some no-name stars. I was being mean.
You're being a bit sassy.
I was being a little
sassy,
comments. But I said starring the poor man's Jessica Alba and the poor man's Paul Walker. That was being.
You did. Well, no, I mean you got. Obviously, like they went for the physical look. Yeah, for these characters and they're so generic looking.
That was the point I was trying to get across. I'm not trying to be mean towards the actors in this, but because they did fine, they were okay, but it was like you could tell it was that this movie was made to just capitalize on the franchise, the familiarity of it. They did not do like the first two movies and put like big name stars in or anything. This was a cash grab to me. And both actors in this, were from other countries. So I think he's British, or he's got a because I saw in the behind the scenes thing he's got a he's
British or Australian accent or something. I couldn't tell. And then she's, I think, from Italy, right?
She's from Italy. Yep.
Yeah, and so they're both trying to do an American accent in this film, and it's just a couple of lines where they just are so grammatically correct, it bothers me. Because nobody speaks like that, especially in those sequences. Like, there was like one where she goes, "I'm going to get you something to eat." Who says that like that? No one says that like that. And,
especially
I know
in New York.
Exactly, yeah. We're like, we're going to get some grub. But just at that point, and I'm like, for some reason, it stuck out like a sore thumb to me, that line. And it just, I don't know. And like, something about the way she screamed all the time was making me laugh.
Yeah, well.
Her screams were kind of like, a little bit like outlandish at some levels.
I mean,
kind of made me laugh.
I love Big Bang Theory, and I love
me too.
Johnny Galecki as Leonard, and he is definitely the bright spot in this whole movie. He's actually because he's the actually only decent actor in this whole movie. I think
he does. Yeah, I saw you put in the notes. Tim writes, Johnny Galecki does a good job not being Leonard. And then I kind of tagged it with a little line. I said, but it would be. I think maybe what may have saved some of this movie is if maybe. Sheldon still came in at one point, and after Leonard's watching the tape, he'll be like, "Well, you fell for one of my classic pranks, bazinga."
Yeah. Well, although he does a little bit because he is a professor.
True.
So he kind of he does have a little tinge. You could tell he's trying hard not to do. He's not being the Leonard. He doesn't use the Leonard voice. There's a Leonard.
No,
voice.
Definitely. There's no Leonard voice.
No,
that's the nasal. There's no nasal.
No, there's no nasal, but. You still get that tinge of like maybe there's a little bit of typecasting here, just a little tinge of it where they had to put him in a university and make him a professor, but
and make him be studying a thing.
Yeah,
he's like trying to study. But I got to tell you, I've always been a Johnny Galecki fan from back in the Roseanne days. He did this great movie called Bookies,
right? Christmas Vacation.
I mean it was just so great, and I loved seeing him in stuff. And so, so it's like, to me, it was like, I was glad to see him in it. It was almost a comforting thing.
So, Brian, describe there's a fairly decent opening scene in this one. Describe that, and then I'm going to describe my big pet peeve that I had in the rundown.
Yeah, so, I mean, I personally love the opening sequence, even because it was kind of had this big budget, kind of Final Destination feel to it to me. Where, personally, I love kind of like any, I love disaster films to some degree. So it's kind of had that feel about, with a plane.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so cool that, you see the first couple of Ring movies, and how kind of like the first one did the thing with the TV,
right? Where
you realize you weren't safe in the TV. They show you now you're not safe on a plane. It's like
right. I did like that. I liked how you realize how far Samara's influence now reaches. She can go.
Yeah,
anywhere.
I mean, yeah, she takes down an entire plane. And I love the sequence where, like, the pilots are in there and they see the whole imagery, like, flashing on their screens and stuff, and the sensor and all the TV screens in the plane are all doing the video thing. And I saw that and I was like, wow. I said, this is, I had a lot of hope for the movie when this started, and I had seen that scene. I think they were kind of smart, the filmmakers with that, because they released that sequence online before the movie came out.
Yeah.
To try and get people to see it, and that's probably where all the $27 million
yeah.
For
that's
people that rushed out
good part of
because
this whole movie.
Yeah, it is. And in fact, actually, it continues a little bit into right before when they do the title cards is when pretty much the movie went downhill for me.
Right.
Because even when Johnny Galecki's character watches it and he looks at that big window and it does the flicker.
Yeah.
To that whole imagery, that classic gray, foresty imagery. I was like, wow, this is some really cool stuff. But then it's almost as if the movie ended there, I'd be completely satisfied.
Right.
Like, if that was just a short.
Well, so I had it in the rundown because this is one of my pet peeves of horror movies, and it's whenever you have like a cool opening scare or something, and it usually ends with somebody screaming, and then they cut to. Oh my god, it made me literally like cringe in my office while I was watching this. So they'll have like some scare scene or somebody screams or something's about to happen, and then they cut to like a college campus, and it's always playing like do 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 or like Blink 182 or something, right. And there's just people walking around. Oh, I hate that. Like, stop using that. Stop. Yeah, because
I think Scream used it like.
Oh my god! It came from
almost everyone,
yeah,
right?
It came from Scream. It's such a freaking ripoff, and I cannot stand it whenever those movies do that. And it's the same. It's the same people walking in the same way with the same stupid music going on in the background. I'm getting off my soapbox right now, but stop doing that, people. Stop it.
Yeah. I mean, that whole opening sequence, that through the Galecki sequence, that was probably the obviously the weakest part when it did that, because it kind of interrupted it. Like, it almost should have went. Like, maybe they just should have done that sequence in a flashback later, how he got the VCR and the tape.
Yeah. Now, I will say this, because going into this movie, I was like, what? How in the hell are they going to do VHS in the age of? We don't even. God. Physical media itself is barely hanging on. Period.
Right. Other than me and Tim.
We're keeping the Blu-ray industry alive just single-handedly. But
yeah,
how in the world are they going to do this? And I kind of did like the fact that Johnny Galecki's character is sort of like a retro fan. He's one of those that likes to go back and find old VHS tapes, and he's still got a VCR. That kind of amused me. I like that. That's how they kept it alive.
Yeah, and actually they cut. It was funny because I was watching some of the deleted scenes and the little behind the scenes stuff on the Blu-ray, and the girl that played Samara in this film was talking about about a sequence, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't remember that in there. So I rewound. I actually went back, not rewound, but I went back. See, I'm in VHS mode. I went back to that sequence. To watch it, and it wasn't in there. But then on the deleted scenes, it was in there, where apparently the guy that sells that VCR to to Gabriel, Johnny Galecki's character, was Rick Baker.
Oh, cool.
And she was saying she liked it because it was almost as like they were taking the old, type of, medium of the VHS and kind of passing it on to the next generation kind of a thing. And then it, obviously it became, after that tape went, got transformed into digital form, that was the end of it. So she kind of liked that, but for some reason they cut that out, and it just shows him there, and I guess he picks up that girl or whatever. And
right, so this one,
so I guess he's still got, again, like Leonard, he's getting attractive women regardless.
Yeah. Well, so I guess just to give a brief summary of Rings is you have, and I'm sorry, I did not even bother to look at the characters' names.
I know Gabriel. That's about
okay,
it.
so you
that's
have
the only one I remember.
Julia, she's dating a guy named Holt. And
that's right. Now that you said that, now I can make it Holt.
Yeah, Holt.
Yeah, okay.
And he looks like a Holt. But
he does.
But anyway, so they basically have a long distance relationship. He goes off to, I guess, college, and he ends up somehow getting involved in disappearing. And as we learned later, he kind of gets involved in this videotape of The Ring, which is still going around. So she ends up basically taking over the role of the Naomi Watts character. She's now trying to find out what happened to her boyfriend, which, again, this might just be a generational thing because I'm old now and I don't care about what happened to your stupid boyfriend. But that kind of took it.
Yeah.
That kind of got lost on me as well, because at that point, the whole movie centers around a girlfriend finding her boyfriend, which I don't care.
Right. I mean, not that you need to see this scene either, but it's so funny. She's apparently in high school still, because he goes off to college, she doesn't. But yet she just at one point leaves for days and days. Yeah. Never calls her parents, never discusses where she looks like she's living on her own, in all honesty, through it. Because she's got, she's just living in wherever she is in her house. It seems like no one else is home ever.
I mean, I admit that's just me being old and cranky, but...
No, but yeah, no, but I see it. Yeah, I mean...
The mom-son relationship in the first two movies, I could identify more with, I guess, than this, because this girl looking after her college party guy, jock boyfriend thing. So
yeah, you don't care about these characters. You have no compassion for them at some level. It's like whatever, they're
right, and
typical guy and girl, and okay,
Yeah, exactly. There's just no compassion for these characters. I care to some extent what happens to Aiden in the first two movies because he's a kid,
right?
And I realize I care about Naomi Watts, and I know she's his mom. I know she cares about him. But in this movie, you're introduced to these two characters as these generic in love adolescent, early 20s, whatever they are. I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
And so you really have no reason to invest in them whatsoever or care what happens to them.
No, and you're introduced to them in about maybe, a 2-minute sequence, and then he's off to college, and
yeah, so
that's the end. So there's no, I mean, you assume they've been together for a while, and there's some hokey romance lines in it, but nothing's believable in it at all. So
right, so now you go on this familiar road we've gone on, or she has to go hunt down what's happened to him. Where is he at? Oh, she meets up with the Johnny Galecki character, and we find out he's kind of obsessed with this movie and figuring out all the secrets and stuff and unlocking everything in it, which I admit is kind of a cool angle.
Yeah, no, I actually like that part of it. The thing about this one is it had a good. That part of the plot was really good, I thought.
Yeah, because
it makes sense in a modern day.
Right. I was wondering, how are you going to bring this up to modern day? And I was thinking, if this tape really existed in modern day, you would have people analyzing it with computers and video capture software and picking it apart. And that I did like, that they did include that. So you do have that where there's this modern use of technology to figure out what's going on. And just it's frustrating to me they couldn't make a better movie out of it, because it is the right way to take the franchise. Like it is another, again, like a logical progression, and it is a good way to keep it up to date. But man, I will say it's not as, I don't know how to say this, because it wasn't as dull or boring to me as the second one for some reason.
No, it wasn't dull.
It wasn't dull. I think it had more horror sequences, which is probably what kept my interest a little more.
Right. Yeah.
It's not to say it's good, but it's definitely not as dull. And part of that, admittedly, is probably because I had never seen it before, which
right.
I had the first. I had already seen Ring 2 before, so I was a little more invested naturally in this one. But so I will say, it had enough little horror sequences and stuff, and it's hard to describe, but you could tell it's a lot more mainstream, formulaic, studio exec.
And it definitely had that PG-13 horror kind of vibe to it that you knew was, that they're trying. You almost could, you knew the audience they were trying to get. There was no hiding it. They weren't trying to do anything revolutionary at all, other than
right. Especially watching them all in a row, you realize The Ring was them going after. They were using a big budget director, a big budget star. They're trying to make a really serious attempt at a good horror movie, which they did.
They were definitely successful with the first one.
Ring 2, they're attempting to again use a good director, I assume, bringing back the same stars. They're trying to recapture the magic of the first one. I get it. It's didn't pull it off really, but I know what they were trying to do. This one, tonally completely different. It just feels like a franchise cash-in to me.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, it seems weird because we're not really speaking so highly of it, but but like you said, it may have just been because we hadn't seen it before, because I think I enjoyed it more than the second one, but then again, the second one kind of had this thing where I felt like, since I loved the first one, and I remembered it so clearly, it was fine to watch, it was easy to watch because I enjoyed it. Second one was kind of like I just kind of wanted to get through it,
right?
To the third one because we hadn't seen it yet, and the fact that the second one I didn't remember any of it, it was like it was a struggle to get through, really, and it was weird because it shouldn't have been that hard to get through. Yeah,
I know what you're saying. It's really hard to describe because we're bad mouthing it, but I think I did kind of enjoy the third one more than the second one on some level, maybe because of the concepts were fresh. But it was still a letdown for the franchise as a whole. It was not the movie that I was hoping it would be at all.
Right. It could have been a movie, and basically the way it ended, with that open ending kind of thing, you could tell that they were hoping this was going to regenerate the franchise, and then there'd be more Ring movies. I think this pretty much killed it till maybe 20 years down the road where they decide to remake the whole series again. But right, I think their attempt at rejuvenating this is pretty much out the window now, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I had said before I was questioning the timing because Japanese horror has not been a thing now for 15 years, but then I can kind of see it because it is like the 15th anniversary of The Ring. So in that respect, okay, I can see why you might try to bring it back. But it just didn't work. I don't think it's going to work.
No, and what kills me about it is, like I said, that first opening sequence was awesome. I thought. I mean, it's just then to then I know it popped in that the cliche part in there, but then it kind of got back on track a little with when Galecki's character watched the first day and it had the cool imagery, and then the start, and it really was. I still thought, I was like, wow, this could be going somewhere. And then it didn't at some level.
And again, that might be director, actors. You had some probably some less than stellar choices there for both of those. So, but anyway.
Although the guy that played Holt, I could have sworn I've seen in something else. I don't, but then he could be just that generic. It's no offense to the poor guy, but yeah, I mean, like you said, he may have just been he looks so much like other people in those type of roles that it probably wasn't him.
Yeah, I was kind of looking through his IMDb and I don't recognize any of this. He's been on some TV stuff, but
okay.
I don't remember any of these. But anyway, that's the Ring trilogy. I would say The Ring still really holds up very well. Still a terrific horror movie. Ring 2, utterly forgettable. Even a week later, it's gone. It's out of my mind. It's gone. And Rings was just a disappointment. It just failed to capture what the first movie did, and in some ways really missed a golden opportunity, I think, because like you said, the seeds were there to do something cool and bring this up to date, and they just missed the mark on it.
Yeah. You know what? Speaking with Tim, everyone knows now that he's got his jump scares that get him all the time. He actually, if you want, maybe Tim, you should tell the story about when your daughter kind of.
Oh, that'd be a good opportunity. Yeah. So this doesn't concern The Ring; it actually concerns The Grudge. But
right.
It's a good opportably for it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of funny. I tell this story from time to time. So you guys know I'm just a jumpy person by nature. Probably because my brother tormented me incessantly throughout my life, trying to scare me. But so one night I have a 2-story house and my office is upstairs, and obviously the kitchen and stuff's downstairs. So I was in the office where I usually watch most of my movies, and I was watching the remake of The Grudge. I'm sitting there by myself in the dark watching it. So I'm already kind of spooked anyway. So I decided I need to go downstairs and get a drink. So I went downstairs, got my drink, and I'm coming back up the stairs, and I see this girl standing at the top of the stairs with long hair in shadow. And it was in shadow enough that I couldn't really tell what I was seeing. I couldn't tell if it was like a girl or if it was like a coat, maybe, that I had left on the stair rail or something. And so as I continue up the stairs, again, it's pitch black dark. I haven't turned on any lights. As I continue up the stairs, I look, and then I can clearly see the shadow of a girl with long hair, just like those Japanese ghosts. And they're just standing there motionless. And it scared me so bad that I don't think I've ever had this fear before or since this happened, but I actually tried to scream and nothing would come out. Like it was just like, I was so terrified I couldn't even scream. And I just had this just sheer, like, I felt like my heart stopped, and I literally was trying to scream and couldn't. And then I realized it was my daughter. I don't remember how old she was.
Did you give her a haircut the next day? So it was a little shorter.
So she had apparently, she was probably 2 or 3 at the time, maybe even. But yeah, she had crawled out of bed and was just standing there at the top of the stairs watching me come up the stairs, not realizing that she looked exactly like the freaking ghost from The Grudge, and about gave me a heart attack. So that's my funny kids are scary story. So
yeah, that always. I remember when you first told me that, it just cracked me up.
Yeah, any parent has probably had one of those instances where they wake up at 3 a.m. and their child is like 2 inches from their face, and it happens. But yeah, that's God. To this day, that might be the most scared I've ever been.
That is hilarious.
By a 4-year-old.
I'm almost nervous too when we stay at your place. I don't know,
No,
to ever look around in that.
No, she's a deep sleeper these days. She won't get out of bed. But that was pretty funny. That's a great story.
Yeah, I figured you have to mention because I could see us doing The Grudge down the road, but I figured this might be a good time for that. Where we kind of mentioned it a couple times. So. Yeah,
everybody laughs at that story, man. Because oh my god, I've never been that scared in all my life over a 4-year-old. But anyway, so.
Makes a good story.
Yeah, it's a good story. I guess we'll wrap things up. I'm going to do something a little different this week, Brian, because I figure everybody knows how to do searches. I'm not going to go through all of our rundown of our Facebook and stuff. Just suffice it to say, you can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Twitter. Yeah. I will give you our email address, which is civilgorepodcast@gmail.com. So feel free to drop us a line. I had a buddy say he was going to start blowing up our email box just so we get some mail. But nice. If you have any criticisms, or we actually got some really good constructive criticism today from a buddy of mine that we're going to incorporate into the show. So yeah, absolutely. By all means, if you have any criticism or even just want to say, hey, good job, I listen to the show, drop us an email. We're always checking it. And please leave us a review on iTunes because we have that contest coming up. And one of the only ways you can enter for that contest is if you have left us an iTunes review. So
yes.
make sure you go out and do that. You can do that even before the contest kicks off, and you will be counted as an entry. So go out and do that and help us out there. But before we go, let's talk about the trivia question for this week.
Yes. So, well, we'll give you the answer to last week's. The answer was basically Jill Banner, who played Virginia in Spider Baby. What was her real name? And it was Mary Malumbi.
And now I see why she changed it.
Yeah, Jill Banner is much catchier.
Sort of like Bruce Banner.
Right, exactly. That's kind of what I was thinking. Yeah, so it was before the Hulk TV series and stuff, but obviously the Hulk's comic was in full distribution at that point. So yeah, so maybe, who knows? Maybe she's a big Hulk fan and she changed her name. You know.
And so you had a absolutely brilliant beer pairing this week for our Ring Trilogy.
Yeah, it's actually called Samara Brown Ale. It's from the Lone Pine Brewing Company in Portland, Maine. It's a maple brown ale, and it's a seasonal release, so it can be, obtained, but I have a feeling it's more of a fall winter release.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good, though.
It's good. They're pretty big with all the, good beers up there, because I know Julie and I did a brewery tour when we went there for a couple days. We hit a bunch. We didn't hit this one though. I don't know if it was. It says in Portland, Maine. We were there, but there are so many breweries in there, and I guess we just tried to choose ones that were in a kind of in a path of some sort, so we didn't just wander all over the city. Although we ended up going to. There was a couple I would have passed on and place for this one, which seemed kind of cool. But so anyway, that's a Samara Brown Ale from Lone Pine Brewing Company. I don't know if you could get a better pairing to the Ring movie, unless there was one called Galicki Lager or something. I don't know. But so I guess, and then we'll finish off with our trivia question this week. I figured I'd want to do with the original, something based more on the original movie than any of the others.
Right.
So the question is, when the DVD release came out, they had an interesting feature on it. It was a special feature. What was that special feature? It was, I'll give you a hint. It is an Easter egg. Easter eggs were huge on DVDs at the time. I remember Independence Day had a massive one where you clicked on it and you could access every single behind-the-scenes news story that was going on in the movie and stuff like that. And, I think you had to, click something and then type in the July 2nd, whatever the movie came out. And so that was a big thing. So basically there's a great Easter egg on the original DVD release of The Ring. What was that Easter egg?
Cool.
So, yeah. And I got to tell you, I have the original. I'm going to pop that in and check it out.
Yeah, I want to try it now because I've got it as well. So,
yeah,
it looks like it's going to be pretty cool. So, I guess we'll sign off here, and we'll see you guys back here next week.
Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.